All right. Welcome everybody to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Tuesday, February 14th, starting with call to order. Roll call starting on the left.
Frank Mills.
June Gagnon.
John Meyer.
Karla Desjardins.
Ryan Gray.
Mary Ann Chinati.
Katie O'Neill. And we do have a quorum, and there are no alternate members to appoint. Moving on to public hearing, item A, 22 ASP of Ronald Tatro, requesting a special permit for a 736 square foot accessory dwelling unit located at 7 Sterling Road, Moosup, Assessors Map 30, Block 112, Lot 8, RA 60 zoning district. Do we have anyone to speak for the applicant?
I have nothing to say, but I'm here.
If you could just come up and give a brief description of what you're applying to do, and if you have any sketches or floor plans that you want to present to the commission.
The commission does have that in their packet.
Perfect. There it is.
So it's currently just empty storage space above an existing garage that I want to turn into, just add it to living space, put a little accessory dwelling unit, a little apartment upstairs. Currently we're going to use it for like a fitness room, but if somebody needed a place to live temporarily, which seems to be happening a lot lately, that'd be a nice little spot for somebody to stay for a few months.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience who has a comment or question on this application, now is your opportunity. Okay, hearing and seeing none. Any staff or board comments or questions?
Just to elaborate on that, it is a one-bedroom, 736 square feet. The main dwelling is 2,024 square feet, so the ADU is approximately 36% of the size of the house. So it does meet our regulations.
Thank you, Brian. Any other comments or questions from board members? Okay, so hearing and seeing no other public comment, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by June.
I'll second.
Second by John. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. Moving on to item B, 23-2SP of Strategic Commercial Realty Group LLC, care of David Held, requesting reapproval of earth excavation permit on property located at 0 Jackson Road, Assessors Map 7, Block 53A, Lot 41, RA 60 zoning district.
For the record, David Held, a professional engineer and land surveyor with Provost and Rivero. And as noted, this is a renewal of an application which was approved by this commission initially in 2018. So we're a 5-year permit expiration date, I believe, at the end of April. For those of you that were not on the commission when this was originally approved, I'm going to refer here to sheet 4 in the plan set, which is an overall plan and map. This is a fairly large property, it's 400 plus acres in size. The only road frontage that it has is on the north side here on Jackson Road. That road frontage is not intended to be utilized for any truck traffic or entry and exit from this site to complete the excavation that we're showing here. All the material that's removed from this property goes over an existing haul road here on the east side, and this corridor here is the Providence and Worcester rail line, crosses the rail line and goes into the Hopkinsville processing plant, which is accessed off of Route 12. So we're showing 7 excavation phases on the plan. Phase 1 here is essentially complete with the exception of a little bit of restoration work, which is ongoing right now. We anticipate that will be completed within the next month or so as the spring season approaches. Phase 2 to the south is almost completed. I would say it's probably 70% complete. Backfilling of that area started, and restoration of that area is also started. There's a little bit more material left to be removed there. So essentially what we're looking at is 5 phases that are untouched at this point and to be excavated. And if we refer to detail sheet number 1, which is sheet 12, at the end of our excavation notes, we've quantified what the material is to be removed in each phase. You'll note on there that phase 2 is still reporting 1.7 million yards, and we're saying it's partially completed. I would say essentially there's probably about 200,000 yards left to actually come out. A good portion of that phase, the excavation that they did do, is much shallower than we had originally been approved for. They ran into there was a few boulders and suitable material, so they elected to just not go down any deeper and start the restoration work. And you can see that we're reporting the quantities for the other phases. Phase 3, which is, it's only started in light of the fact that they've stripped topsoil off a couple of acres of it. But phase 3 would be 2.2 million yards. Phase 4 is 1.4 million yards. Phase 5 is 1.6 million yards. Phase 6 is 2.4 million yards. And phase 7, which is the far northerly phase next to Jackson Road, is 1.3 million yards. As we described in detail back in 2018, we anticipate that this project is going to be going on not just for years, but for decades. So this is something that you'll be seeing continually as this progresses. Obviously, that quantity of material we're talking about and that much acreage, this is not a fast project. I believe the initial 40 acres, which was part of what we're showing as phase 1, was approved back in 2004. So it's been going on for nearly 20 years and completed 2 phases. So just to give you an idea of how long this may be going on for. Also on this sheet in our excavation notes, we're staying with the same working hours that were originally approved, which is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 a.m. to noon on Saturdays, with no operations on Sundays or the typical federal holidays. The past practice for the last 20 years on this site is that all topsoil and subsoil that is stripped off of the excavation areas is stockpiled and reused for the reclamation of the site. We don't see any reason why that will not continue. We did specify in here specifically that a minimum amount of topsoil would be stockpiled to provide 4 inches going back on the site for reclamation. Typically, there's about 4 to 5 feet of topsoil in the subsoil there, and A and B horizons, and that all goes back on the site. So, one thing that I will point out in light of that, this is shown on site operations plan number 1, and better actually start with site plan number 2. This dotted hatched area, that's the area that depends on the previous sheet as well. It's already been restored. It's got permanent vegetation growing on there. And this area is kind of square crosshatch. This is as of December also, so this will reflect today. But that has been backfilled, and we're starting to put topsoil down on that area. So I would anticipate that you'll see some vegetation growing in that area this spring. So we don't foresee any changes in the way this operation's been progressing. Typically, they're going to have about 20 or so acres and active at a time, with restoration following right behind that as the seasons allow that to happen. So it's worked very well in the past, and we foresee that continuing to go on. At the request of Ryan, we did prepare an updated bond estimate, and that has been reviewed by our consulting town engineer. We're proposing a $250,000 rolling bond, which would cover 30 acres of open area. It's not necessarily that we anticipate having that much open at any one time, but there are phases that overlap. If excavation has to be shallow because of unsuitable material, there will be more area open before spring or fall restoration season. Always going to follow behind with the Your town engineer has provided some commentary regarding the bond estimate. He doesn't necessarily like the idea of a rolling bond, because it just continues until the next renewal cycle in 5 years. In our way of thinking, that's the way it's been done for 20 years successfully. I think the 20 years of history with the operator on the site kind of speaks for itself. They're good stewards of what they're trying to do out there. And it's a little bit more practical than trying to do this on a per phase basis. And my explanation for that is, if they go into a phase and bond the phase, and it takes them 5 years to complete the phase, the town's in the same position as rolling the bond for a 5-year permit cycle. We think that the 30 acres that we're covering there, we're kind of providing a margin of safety for the town if that's what the price is. And we really don't get any federal effect by doing that on a per phase basis. At most, it's going to be 5 years before you see the end, you get to be up the bond. If you felt it was appropriate to look at it sooner, I would base it more on a time frame, a phase thing. If you said you wanted to look at the bond in 2 years or 3 years or whatever, I think that's a more appropriate way to do it for everybody rather than saying I'm going to bond it per phase. Safer for you, it's fair for the applicant, but that's kind of up to you to decide how you want to do it. I think it's less cumbersome to do it that way. So we do not have any regulated wetland activities. Everything that we're proposing with this current excavation is outside of a 100-foot regulated area. You may recall from 2018, this site is the subject of an Army Corps of Engineers permit that was granted back in 2010, and that permit includes with it certain requirements for reclamation and stewardship of wetlands and wetland buffer areas. So the applicant is bound by that permit, obviously, as well as whatever the town's requirements are with regard to wetlands. I will note that the Army Corps requirements are significantly more stringent than whatever the town of Plainfield would impose on a site like this. So, unless there's any questions, that's the conclusion of the presentation. Answer whatever questions you might have.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience with a comment or question regarding this application, please step up to the microphone.
Okay, well, I've never done anything like this before, and all of that sounded great, but I couldn't see anything of what he was talking about in the back.
Could you just state your name?
I'm Jeremy Gagnon. I live on 1 Jackson Road, and this letter I got from Provost and Rivera was talking about the earth excavation at 0 Jackson Road.
Could you point out on the map so he can see exactly where the locust is?
Can you turn it so we can see it?
Yeah.
And then if you could just show here, your map 7, lot 53A, lot 41, 0 Jackson Road, and where the paving is going to be and where it's going to stop. I have little kids, and I don't really want a cliff at the boundary of mine. I don't really care for all the dust and all the noise.
So the property,
Yep. If you could just take the microphone, David, so that it can go to the back of the room, that would be great.
Yeah, nobody could really see what you're talking about back there.
And if there's a reference of house number so they know where the entrance is. And this is an existing operation. And I would just say, sir, if you have any issues with dust control, you should definitely report those to our zoning enforcement, because they are required to keep the dust under control. So
Okay.
if you experience any dust issues, please contact the zoning enforcement officer so he can review this
And
site.
how close can they dig? Like my neighbor, Kevin Kadir, he said they were digging back there before. There ended up being a cliff right at the boundary.
So David, could
How-
you just outline
how
like the
tall is
buffers and where the entrance is?
sure, so
Thank
this is Jackson Road up here on the north side, and that notice referenced several parcels. This entire 450 or so acre property is made up of, I think, 4 separate parcels, and they're all undeveloped with houses, so we're all listed as either 0 Jackson Road or I think 0 Lovers Lane for one of them. So you're on Jackson Road, which is up here. The area that they're currently working is down here at the southerly side of the property. And you'll notice that we've labeled phases for the excavation here. And right now, they're completing phase 2 and just ready to move into phase 3. So they've got 4, 5, 6, and 7. Well, 7 is the one that's closest to Jackson Road up here. If I had to take a wild guess, I would say it's maybe 30 years before they get into that. So this area here has taken 20 years. We've got all of this to go. As far as property line buffers, with the exception of this boundary right here at the northwest corner and this one at the northerly corner, holding a minimum of a 50-foot setback to any property boundaries. And in a lot of cases, it's significantly more because there's wetlands along the property boundaries, and we're holding significant buffers from the wetlands.
So what exactly is your?
Hold on, sir.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so in a public meeting, you just have to direct your questions here, and then we can direct them to the applicant. It does not become a conversation back and forth. So just to keep order, since you mentioned it was your first time here, welcome. And yes, if you have additional comments, please go ahead.
Okay. I was just wondering where exactly 0 Jackson Road is.
Well, 0 Jackson Road could be any of a number of them. You're gonna have to build a map block and lot to know which one is which. But the big parcel is map 7, block 53A, lot 41. And then there's these small internal parcels, map 7, block 53A, lot 42, and lot 43. I believe all 3 of those would be listed as 0 Jackson Road. And again, that's on the northerly side.
So in reference to, let's say, driveway numbers, so where the entry comes out onto Jackson Road, do you know which driveway numbers those are between? So they just have a reference
I
point?
do not.
Okay,
But there is no driveway on Jackson Road, there never will be.
okay.
It's
Well, there is a driveway, but you can't use it.
Yeah, it's a woods road.
Okay.
There will never be any truck access onto Jackson Road as part of this permit.
And June mentioned 548?
Yeah, number 48.
Okay.
It's across the street from them.
So that is not being used for access to the site, but if you needed a reference of where the property extends to,
Yeah, if you look at the location map here, this is Black Hill Road out here, and this is Jackson Road right here, Pickett Road coming down here, so you can kind of get an idea of where that frontage would be. I think there's maybe one house on Jackson Road, and then this property's frontage starts.
yeah, you're in look, yeah, absolutely. Do you just have to speak louder because it's public?
Okay. My house is right here at the corner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this would be your house, or on the same side of the
Yep. The other side of Brenda Miller.
Yeah.
Right here.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Did you have a comment or question, sir?
Yeah, my name is John Kuto. I live on Jackson Road too. And the parcel you guys you're trying to get is Mrs. Young's old parcel of gravel thing? Is that what you're trying to do?
No, this is the former Young property right here. It's separate from this parcel. So it's got
Okay.
nothing to do with this application.
Okay, so where is this at? Where is this? I got one of them letters too. So
Right.
where is this on pertaining to that?
So this is the former Young property here.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with where the Lobes used to live.
Yeah, I know exactly where it is.
This is the old Loeb property here.
Okay.
And this is basically all the land behind them.
Okay, so
Further over this way is the railroad.
if this is Jackson Road right here, how far are you guys going to take before you get to Jackson Road?
I believe there's a minimum buffer around Jackson Road.
50 foot?
Actually, no, we
David,
can-
could you outline the phasing again to show where you're starting and where you're going so they can get a reference of how long it would take to reach the Jackson Road parcel?
Yeah, so.
Gentlemen, don't have a
Jackson
conversation.
Road is here.
Thank you.
This is our last excavation phase here, and this kind of dash wide line there is the limits of where the work would go.
Okay, so how far is that?
Hold on, sir. We just got to keep order because it's a meeting. David, could you outline where you are now in the phasing?
Yeah, so
How long it took to get there?
Yeah, so This is the area that they're currently working now in the southerly part of the site. You'll see this area in the bold here, which is labeled as a completed excavation area. Then there's a small area of phase 1 and phase 2 here. That's taken 20 years to complete. They got their original permit, I believe, in 2003 or 2004. So they've got all the rest of this to go before they even get here. And I don't know the exact dimension, but just using the scale right here, looking at that dimension, there's probably actually 150 to 200 foot bulk of the Jackson.
But you're not sure?
It's at least 150 feet.
At least 150, yes.
And they have to come back to this board every 5 years.
Yes, and again, it's
So they have to give progress.
it's probably a 30-year time frame before they would get out there. Now, this is a 475-acre property, and it's not an overnight project.
Do you have a comment or question, sir? Sure.
My name is Kuchil.
Can you give him the microphone, David?
I live
So,
on 42 Jackson Road. And the only thing I want is if they're going to do that, I'd like a written paper statement that if our wells get polluted, they drill new wells at their expense.
so could you describe, David, the monitoring wells that are on the property right now?
That's a aquifer, that hill right across from us. That's a water aquifer. They start
Understood.
digging into that, they're going to kill our wells.
So there are monitoring wells on the property. Could you describe those, David, please?
Yeah, there are. They're spread across the site, and that was part of our Army Corps and deep permitting was extensive groundwater monitoring. So that's something that they looked at in detail, and we're just simply abiding by what they've approved and allowed us to do.
And could you just indicate what you're presenting to the board?
This is a proposed road. One is not.
So they're not proposing a road. There will be no access to the property via Jackson Road.
Between me and my son, this is 52 feet right here.
Right, but the current application before us has no access on Jackson Road. So although it may appear that they have access to the property, on the current application, they do not access the property. And if anyone accessed the property via that, you would have to report that to zoning enforcement because they have not been approved to use any access on Jackson Road.
They started to put a road through.
Okay,
On the site.
okay.
I don't know, the boat will pull it out.
Yeah, so this application does not have access on Jackson. I don't believe we can require that, unfortunately. We can require the monitoring wells, which they are doing, but we can't ask for the agreement that you're asking for.
So in other words, if they, well, go for it, come with that.
You would have to go through, it wouldn't be through the zoning board, it would be through the court system, if there was something of that. So we're using the monitoring wells to ensure that the site's being properly administered. Anyone else in the audience with a comment or question on this application?
Art Gagnon,
Yep.
Jackson Road. I have two questions. One is involving an application you had last year, Howard Haggart, who was given permission to go through this site with his earth excavation. And my question is, does that impede on the reclamation of this site, them going through there?
I'm not sure.
No, it does not.
Okay, because they were going through a phase that was already done, because I had asked that. So they have a special road for that.
Yeah, it's just a haul road.
Okay. And the other question, we have a problem on Jackson Road because this property became an attraction for dirt bikes and quads. And they're up and down Jackson Road. Is there any way they can at least put no trespassing signs on trees or something? Something to distract
So if
the
the question
kids?
is unauthorized motorbikes on Jackson Road, that would be a police commission
Yeah, but
jurisdiction.
this is the attraction, is this sand and gravel pit.
What
Is the
kind of
attraction.
signage does the property have, and is it gated?
None.
Let the applicant answer, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately with dirt bikes and ATVs,
Sure.
I can assure you that the applicant does not want them on the property either because it's an extreme liability for them. The only way to prevent it is to put a 10-foot tall chain link fence and guard towers with machine guns all over the property line, and they can't do that. It's a problem with any project of this nature and any property of this size.
So it becomes a law enforcement issue.
It does, and, you know, like I said, if there was some practical means of keeping them up there, I'm sure that they would be doing that.
The entrance they use,
Is there any signage posted on the Jackson side? Or a gate?
I don't know what is out there today. I know at one point there were some posted signs there. I don't think they actively maintain them.
Ryan, would you agree signage would be appropriate, just to mark as,
Signage would not help.
just to indicate more clearly, so then law enforcement can take their jurisdiction?
If you so choose.
Okay.
the access road that is not going to be used, that comes out onto Jackson Road, is their entrance. So perhaps something could be done at that access road. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public? Yes? And if you, microphone, just so everybody can hear you.
Lisa Addy, I live at 57 Jackson Road. My only question is, I know this is phase 7. Where, the buffer from my back property, how close can you come to that back property line? 40 feet.
If you can speak a little louder, maybe.
Yes, so. You're not going anywhere near your property. This is your property right here. This is the limit of work here.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from audience members? Any comments or questions from board?
I was curious, how long time period, average, estimated to work for 30 acres?
That is, number one, it's market dependent, and number two, it's completely dependent on
Range?
how deep the material is. I mean, there's some spots on the site where the good material.
We're going to base a bond off of 30 acres, and you're telling us the best way to measure that is time. I'm asking you for that time.
I would say at most, they would do maybe 20 acres in a year with reclamation following up behind that.
20 acres in 1 year, okay.
And that's why we're trying to have a little bit of a buffer there with the 30 acre number.
Okay, thank you.
There's, that initial 40-acre site that they did lasted from 2004 to 2018, and then some. You know, there were some spots in there where the material was well over 100 feet deep. And there's going to be other areas on the site that are similar.
All right, thank you.
Any comments from staff?
Just to recap, this is a renewal of a prior special permit for excavation. They are not proposing to excavate any more than what they were previously approved for. They have satisfied all my comments. I have nothing more to add on this. But before you close the public hearing, I wanted to run through my suggested conditions of approval, should you choose to reapprove this, just because Mr. Held might have an issue with one of my suggestions, so I allow him the opportunity to comment on that. Suggested conditions of approval, Mylars and special permit must be recorded and the zoning permit issued prior to expiration of the 2018 permit to continue with the excavation. Failure to do so will result in a halt in excavation until this condition is met. A bond of $250,000 for 30 acres of erosion and sediment controls / restoration is required prior to receiving the zoning permit to continue excavation. And this might be the one that you have an issue with. Phases are to be opened and restored in numerical order. Not more than 30 acres of open, unvegetated land is permitted at any given time. Reclaimed areas that have not been well established with vegetation cover, or vegetative cover will be considered open land. So you might have an issue with the phases, being open one at a time.
I guess I would just ask for the reasoning behind that.
Just to keep it flowing in the same order, so you can't jump around to, say, phase 6, just because you want to start digging up there.
Yeah, I mean, in general, that's the pattern they follow. It's obviously not exact. I mean, if they need acreage to get through a year and they're at a phase line, they're going to go into the next phase. And that's why we're trying to do this on an acreage basis with the bonding.
Okay, so we can strike that first sentence. Phases are to be open, restored in numerical order. And we can just strike
Well,
that.
isn't the goal to not open multiple areas at the same time? So it's to be consistent. So the open area should be adjacent to the next opening of area. It shouldn't be disconnected. Is that the goal?
That's always been
So
understanding.
I would be in favor of,
If we could word it like that, I think that would make sense.
so phases are to be opened in adjacent acreage
So,
and should not be disconnected from area, active area. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I think that gets the point across.
Okay. And then it indicates not more than 30 acres of open unvegetated land permitted at any given time. I think that's also reasonable, if board members concur and agree. Reclaimed areas that have not been well established with vegetative cover will be considered open. I think the idea of that is if the vegetative cover is not well established, and it's probably not serving its function of soil and erosion control.
Correct.
So those areas would have to be, I don't want to say beefed up, but they'd have to be strengthened so that they're serving the purpose, which is to control dust and soil and erosion, etc. So I would agree with the rest of the statement. So if we modify the first sentence, which I hope you wrote down what I said because I didn't, we can rephrase. So if board members are, and if the applicant believes that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the public, board members, or staff?
I got a comment.
Yeah, please.
This pertains to the quads and dirt bikes that are going in there. I mean, they're potentially damaging your restoration area, in addition to, presenting a considerable liability to the operator himself. I mean, if somebody goes in there and goes off a high wall and gets hurt, they're going to sue the guy who owns the property and comes in there illegally. May not work, but, I mean, I think the signage is a good idea, but you might want to also consider maybe having, maybe some private security go in there on the weekends when nobody's around and chase them out once in a while.
So, this is a topic that comes up really often, but I do remember having discussions with the applicant on other sites where it's been a problem. I don't know if anybody else has experienced this on a personal level, but their experience has been that when you try to control them and when you do things like bring in security or call the police, you'll go out there the next week and you'll find 20 flat tires in every window in your equipment program. Sometimes you choose the lesser of two evils, which is kind of be good neighbors to the extent that you can with somebody doing an illegal activity. Keep your insurance in full force and effect. But that's been their experience, unfortunately. And usually the harder you make it for them, the more retribution you're going to get back in return. So,
Okay. And that is outside our scope, so,
Oh, that's unfortunate.
yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions from the public? Yeah.
My name's John Coogan, and I live across the street from that road that he's talking about. And the problem with these guys on motorcycles and dirt bikes is that there's no headlights on. And they're coming down the road at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and they're going up into the woods. Now, people drive up and down Jackson roads, and you've got these kids, that's pretty dangerous.
Unfortunately, that issue's outside the scope of this commission, but I would suggest that you bring that up to the police department.
Well,
and
it's
the
funny
police
because
commission.
they have been on Jackson Road and they've caught a couple of kids
Right.
and they let them go. So I mean, that's not giving them any kind of message to stay up. Here's another example for you. The other day I was out in the yard and you see this lady pulled up with 3 kids and dropped the dirt bikes off and they go up into the woods. A couple hours later she comes back. She's from Musa,
Yeah,
dropping the kids off, going up into the back of the woods.
yeah.
I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah,
That's the problem, is they're not out there checking them out. That's the problem.
yeah, I would suggest bringing that up.
Eventually, somebody's gonna get hit,
Yeah,
and it's gonna be the guy that hit him's fault because the kid don't have no headlights or no tail lights and shit like that.
sure. And we do have 2 selectmen in the audience today, so.
And we've already talked to one of them about it,
Okay.
actually 2 of them, and
All
the other
right.
one walked away from us.
So it's really a police jurisdiction. I'm sorry we can't help you with that particular issue here this evening, but thank you for your comment. Are there any other comments from board members or staff? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion to close the public hearing.
I have a motion by June, second by Frank. I heard him first. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is closed. Moving on to item C, 22-9SP of Michael Jordan, requesting a special permit for converting an attached garage into an ADU, accessory dwelling unit, on property located at 133 Harris Road, Assessors Map 36, Block 116, Lot 12, RA 60 zoning district. Do we have someone speaking for the applicant?
Mike Jordan, giving them the property and basically turning the downstairs of the existing garage into an in-law apartment for my in-laws. Yes.
All right, thank you, and there's a sketch in the packet.
Yep.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone with a comment or question on this application? Any comments from staff?
Yes, just to summarize, they are converting a existing garage, attached garage, 672 square foot for the apartment. The house is approximately 2,340 square feet, so the ADU is approximately 29% of the size of the main dwelling. It is a 1-bedroom.
Any comments or questions from board members? Okay. And hearing and seeing no additional comments or questions on this application, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion by Frank and a second by John. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Before we move on to item D, because this application is from the town of Plainfield and indicates there may be fitness classes, I have taught fitness classes for the town of Plainfield for 20 years, so I am recusing myself from this application to prevent any form of personal conflict of interest. So I am turning this item over to my vice chairman, John Meyer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the town?
So we are just going to open the public hearing and continue because there was a deficiency in the public notification.
Okay.
So we're not going to be taking any comment or making any presentations at this time, simply opening and continuing to next month.
Okay. I would look for a motion to continue.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll continue to our next meeting.
Yes, March 14th, 7 o'clock in this room.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. And I will resume my seat and call the regular meeting to order. Additions or corrections to the agenda?
There are none.
All right, there are none. Citizen participation. This is the opportunity for the public to address the board on an item that was not a public hearing. Okay, seeing none. Moving on to unfinished old business. Item A, 22-8SP of Ronald Tatro requesting special permit for a 736 square foot accessory dwelling unit located at 7 Sterling Road, Moosup, Assessors Map 30, Block 112, Lot 8, RA 60 zoning district. Do you have items for discussion? Okay. All right, hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on the application.
I'd like to make a motion to approve it.
Second?
I have a motion by June to approve. I have a second by Frank. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Application is approved. Moving on to item B, 23-2SP of Strategic Commercial Realty Group LLC, care of David Held, requesting reapproval of earth excavation permit on property located at 0 Jackson Road, Assessors Map 7, Block 53A, Lot 41, RA 60 zoning district. So we had the items, conditions of approval to discuss, which was the Mylars and special permit must be recorded and a zoning permit issued prior to the expiration of the 2018 permit to continue with the excavation. Failure to do so will result in a halt in excavation until the commission is met.
Can I ask you a question? I live on Jackson Road. Should I recuse myself?
If you feel you have a personal conflict, you should absolutely recuse from voting.
But I don't feel a personal
If
conflict.
you have no personal conflict, then you are permitted to vote. That's a decision. That's a decision each board member has to make. A bond of $250,000 for 30 acres of erosion and sediment controls restoration is required prior to receiving a zoning permit to continue excavation. And then we modified the third one to say phases are to be opened in adjacent acreage and should not be disconnected from the active, what did I say?
Excavation area.
Phase, yeah.
Phase, okay. Not more than 30 acres of open, unvegetated land is permitted at any given time. Reclaimed areas that have not been well established with vegetative cover will be considered open land. Were there any other items for discussion? Anything else from staff?
No.
Okay. All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on the application.
I'd like to make a motion to approve based on conditions that were outlined.
Okay. Motion to approve with conditions as read by Frank. Well, read by me, motion by Frank.
I'll second that.
I have a second by June. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Application is approved with those conditions. Item C, 22-SPL of Keith Passe requesting a site plan review for a 36 by 50 attached garage with a 14 by 37 lean-to, a commercial building located at 28 Sterling Road, Assessors Map 30, Block 61, Lot 18, C2 zoning district.
This requires public hearing.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to, was the application complete, Ryan?
The application is complete.
Okay.
I have not had time to review the plans yet.
Okay. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to schedule the public hearing for our next meeting, which is March 14th.
I'll make that.
I have a motion by John to schedule the public hearing,
I'll second.
and a second by June. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing?
I just wanted to clarify, I had the wrong application. So this is currently being reviewed by the town engineer. He has not had time to complete his review, so we do have to continue.
So schedule the public hearing or not?
It does not require public hearing. I was thinking of this next application.
Ah, understood. So we can rescind.
We'll retract that.
Okay. All in favor of rescinding that motion? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. So the motion is to continue the application to the next meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion to continue by John, second by June. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Continue to next meeting. Item D, 22-9SP of Michael Jordan, requesting a special permit for converting an attached garage into an ADU on property located at 133 Harris Road, Assessors Map 36, Block 116, Lot 12, RA 60 zoning district. Any items for discussion for board members?
No, it's reasonable, it's within the regulations.
second that.
Motion by John to approve and a second by June. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Application is approved. Item E, they have to have a motion to continue this one as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to turn that over to John because I'm recused from this application.
Okay, I would look to a motion to continue this.
I'll make that motion to continue to March 14th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
All right, moving on to new business. Item A, 23-1ZC of TNS Oil proposing a text amendment to section 8-21, special permit uses, commercial zoning district, 9.41 special permit uses in the I-1 industrial district, and section 12 special permits. Since this is a text amendment, it does require a public hearing.
Make a motion to schedule this for a public hearing at our March 14th meeting.
Second?
I have a motion by John and a second by Frank. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Scheduled public hearing for March 14th. Item B, 23-2ZC, Plainfield Planning and Zoning Commission proposing a text amendment to section 12.30.1, special permit uses for historic preservation through use conversion. And since this is a text amendment, this would also require a public hearing.
I'll make that motion to move it to public hearing.
I have a motion by June.
I'll second.
Oh, second by Frank.
March 14th.
March 14th. All right, motion by June and a second by Frank. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Scheduled public hearing in March. Item C, 23-3ZC of the Town of Plainfield Planning and Zoning Commission proposing a 12-month moratorium on cannabis covering all uses as stated in Public Act number 21-1, Senate Bill number 1201, an act considering responsible and equitable regulation of adult use cannabis. This also requires a public hearing.
I'll make a motion to move this to public hearing, March 14th, 2023.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by June and a second by John. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, scheduled public hearing. Item D, 23-1SA of Passay Development, LLC, requesting a 4-lot subdivision of 133 Snake Meadow Road, Assessor's Map 29, Block 122, Lot 2, RA60 zoning district.
The applicant has requested to continue as they are still revising the plans.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to continue to our next meeting. I have a motion by Frank and a second by June. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item E, 23-4SP of Passay Development, LLC, requesting a special permit for construction of a 2,300 square foot barn on property located at 192 Pond Hill Road, Assessor's Map 29, Block 122, Lot 63B, RA60 zoning district.
This one requires public hearing.
Is the application complete?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing.
Make a motion, schedule public hearing for March 14th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, scheduled public hearing in March. Review and act on the minutes of the January 10th meeting. Did anyone have any items for revision, modification?
I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah, I didn't see any need for any adjustments on that. All right, so hearing no changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the January 10th meeting.
So moved.
I'll second. I'm okay.
Okay, motion to approve by John, a second by June. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Minutes are approved. Moving on to correspondence. Okay, none. Moving on to report from zoning enforcement.
Okay, 14 Canterbury Road for junk and vehicles and equipment on property. A letter has been sent out requesting a status update given until May 1st to run the property into compliance, so we will proceed to book it. 3244 Norris Road, Suite LLC. This is the old Jewett City Savings. This is still before the court. 13 Simmons Ave, Doug Briscoe, Motor Vehicle Junkyard, before the court. Carbox Road Extension, this is no new activity on the site since December. 256 Spalding Road, RVS Dwelling, this is proceeding to court. We have a trial hearing on December 13th. I'm sorry, a trial hearing on March 3rd. 552 Squaw Rock Road for junkyard. This is also proceeding to court. We have a hearing on damages on February 27th. Zero Community Ave Extension, mulch operation, no new activity there. 104 High Street, Girardin for a junkyard. The property owner is supposed to be working on cleaning up the property. 201 Pickett Road for sheds and a setback and dump trucks on the property. The pole barn that was under construction is being dismantled. The other shed on the property has not yet been moved, and there is one dump truck remaining on the property toward the rear. They have 30 days to remove. So the beginning of March, they should have everything out. Otherwise, we'll proceed with official notice of violation. 9 Lake Street, Boswell residence, we have a complaint for a trailer on the property, a camper trailer, possibly as a dwelling, and I have not yet looked into that.
Were there any updates to give in executive session?
If you would like, I could.
Okay. Board members, we do have executive session on the agenda because we have not had a court update in a few months. So if the board would like to go into executive session, we can use the planning and zoning office to do so. So would the board like to go into executive session? Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session, which would include all the board members as well as zoning staff. That should cover it.
Make the motion and go into executive session.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Frank, second by June. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so we're going to go into executive session, and we will return after getting that update.
Time is 7:55.
All right, we have returned from executive session and reconvene the meeting at 8:03. Report from Planning and Development.
I'm sorry. In addition to my written report, there was a packet on the desk, on the tables tonight, of pending legislation that affects planning and zoning. It's just an informational thing. An update on the Interroyal site. I met with the interested developer again yesterday. He was also out last week to walk the site. Yesterday he brought his partner with him, and they're looking at mixed-use development over there in phases, with the first phase being the R&D building section, because that's the least contaminated portion of the site. I'm also having a discussion tomorrow with DECD regarding continued funding.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any items for other, unless another board member did. And seeing no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by June to adjourn, second by Frank. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned.